towers of God crumble, yet upon timeless foundations we build again, higher, wiser, whole.
So, we're in another episode, and I said that we're going to talk. In the previous episode, I mentioned that we're going to discuss one of those untouchable ideas that came with my puzzle, that came with my paradigm foundation for my very, very first church. In my book, the first chapter of my book, I called that church the Gentleman's Church. That chapter is titled, God Was Watching, So Was I. I want to talk about, remember in a previous episode, 2 or 3 episodes back, I mentioned the statement in the Apostles' Creed, and he descended into hell, the concept of hell. Oh boy, that is what scared me to the faith. Hell was what made me a believer in God. So scared of hell, I just had to believe. I had a cousin, still very young. She would take candles and like put your hand there and try to hold it for as long as you could. It couldn't last 30 seconds. It's like, you see how hot it is? You just can't even stand it for 30 seconds. Hellfire is 1 billion times hotter and you're going to burn there forever and ever. You're not going to see mommy and daddy. I was super scared. All these ideas scared me like crazy because you take the ideas serious, right? Sunday school scared the hell out of me. And he says, okay, you're going to avoid that bad place. I remember my 5-year-old came back from school one day, and of course they had used hell, probably the teachers, I'm not sure, whoever used the concept of hell to scare them in school that day into obedience. I'm like, there it starts, the fear. You know, I think it would be more beautiful if you search God, just hunger for something, hunger for some connection. And how would you feel if you were a man or a woman and a man is so interested in you because he's afraid of being lonely? He's not pulled to you based on the sophisticatedness of your personality and the attractiveness of your charm and beauty and the greatness of your character and all of that. No, he's just super scared of being alone, that running away from that fear, he runs into you. Or as a young man or young woman that is super scared of poverty and suffering and running away from poverty, runs and stumbles into you. It has nothing to do with you. It has something more to do with what they are more scared of and who can save them from that thing. So Jesus became my savior because I was scared of hell and because I had been frightened incredibly with the idea of hell. And because I believed these ideas, I had to run to Jesus to save me. So the Apostles' Creed really highlights that. It says it's one of the core beliefs of the faith to believe in hell and the whole economy of salvation. In my book, this is a concept that I discuss at length. I discuss the many ways it impacted my life and my brain, and in most part, not in so much positive ways. And yeah, if you want to go into the deep dive of all of that and my interaction with the whole concept of hell, yeah, you want to read that in my book. And so we talked about paradigm, comes prepackaged, right? And it was handed, this is hell, okay? So you have hell, some place of punishment where God puts the disobedient to burn and suffer for eternity, right? For that to happen, there has to be a concept of a soul or a part of a human being that survives eternally, that never dies. So you got to create that concept. Else, what stays in hell forever? And then you got to create another concept of an eternal destination, either hell or heaven. Now imagine that hell comes to your puzzle, prepackaged. Hell is real. No matter what you say, it's real. You know, one preacher said that if hell is not real, all these people that say that hell is not real, it's a man-made tradition. If hell is not real, then nothing makes sense, because then why would Jesus die? What is the purpose of salvation if hell is not real? You see, we said a paradigm determines what is logical, because in that system, in that paradigm system, if hell is not real, then the whole logic falls apart. So for the logic to be consistent, hell has to be a central, immovable piece. So imagine that you have hell as an immovable piece in your paradigm. And then you come across the idea of an immortal soul that is not really correct, it's not really supported by any evidence or something. Just talking. I'm not saying that. We're just talking. Now, if you're going to embrace that, the idea that people die, when people die, they die. There's really no immortal soul or something. I'm not saying that. We're just talking. You see that the whole idea of hell falls apart, because now you're going to be like, okay, if there's no immortal soul, then what gets to burn in hell? You now go back to the drawing board. You're never going to question the idea of hell. That's a fixed piece. You go back to the drawing board and dig around to find the existence of something that is going to burn in this hell, that because the hell exists, you need to find something to burn in it for eternity. That's how the paradigm works. And that's how it forces you into certain logic patterns that you cannot free yourself from. So that's how paradigms take a life of their own. So you have this centerpiece, hell, that must be protected. You need to shape everything else around that. And so a paradigm takes off its life, it must protect itself. And that's how assumptions take its whole century. Like, okay, hell is unmovable. We need to assume and create something that stays in it forever. We need to create all these things to support that immovable piece and keep that immovable piece alive. It's like the king of your game. It's like if you're playing chess, for those of you who've ever played that game or understand the game, you got to keep your king alive. And all the other people are there, their purpose is to protect the king. And that's why you have these king doctrines that you must protect. So you got to create other doctrines, even if it means to manufacture them, bend scriptures, remove scriptures out of context, just to make sure that those king doctrines stay alive. Because if the king doctrines fall apart, the paradigm falls. And paradigms tend to get a life of their own. They tend to protect themselves. That's why if you meet a deeply dogmatic person that has embraced a paradigm, man, you're in for war, because they're going to do everything to fight to protect that paradigm. Once you say something that contradicts, logically and clearly contradicts what they stand for, they're just going to find a way to navigate around it and bring something else. And that's how people would grow in a paradigm, even though not understanding it, accepting these assumptions and never question, and every anomaly that comes up, every inconsistency that comes up, every illogical inconsistency that comes up, they push it away, they either ignore it or they try to harmonize it somehow, even in a way that is so acrobatic or whatever they do all the gymnastics to just keep that paradigm alive and just keep reconciling all the abnormalities and all of that. And we have a place where thoughts become secular, and then it becomes reinforcing, like I need to believe that there's hell, then I need to believe the next thing, and it just goes like that and goes like that. And then you tend to find your safety in that paradigm, and most people feel safe in that paradigm, because this is why the title of my book is very interesting, The Quiet Collapse of Certainty. Like, if your king piece falls apart, and for most people when their king piece falls apart, they lose that certainty that had given them security. And for some people it's not easy for them to lose that certainty. It's very psychologically disorienting. They don't understand that they lose their footing in the world, and they don't understand a lot of other things, and it's a big mess for them. So in summary, every paradigm, they have glued pieces. Some are just glued and patched into some kind of Frankenstein monster. They all have those glued pieces that are just hanging there, crying for dear life. Let no other inconsistency just try to tear them off. Every paradigm kind of has that. And it starts with the first wisdom and first assumption. And the next episode, we're going to talk about that. And then people try to protect them, so you can attack them. And paradigms will try and everything to protect themselves. And at some point, you have to jump. You have to find the courage to question those foundations and those immovable pieces and change your lives. Because paradigms are like lenses. They don't let you see the world. They let you see a world.
In every age, the towers of thought crumble. Yet upon timeless foundations, we build again. Higher, wiser, whole,